It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and we're finally heading into 2001. But before we head into that, so we're looking at January 6, 2001, we've got the 2000s leftover list I have here. And as I said yesterday, some stuff on here I'm not going to get to, so I thought about it. I looked at some of the movies on here. A lot of these are direct-to-video movies, and not only direct-to-video movies, but direct-to-video movies that a lot of us grew up with, myself included. At least my supposed target audience grew up with, because when I've done these direct-to-video movies the last couple of years on these leftover shows, they actually turn out to be the highest viewed video episodes we've done on here. So I figure why not just cover most of these. I'm not going to cover Super Dave, I'm not going to cover Simpatico, or Marion Rhoda, or Heavy Metal 2000, although I have some things to say about them. I don't really remember them too much, but the direct-to-video movies I have on here, I do remember. There is one movie that did come out last year that I did not get to cover, and I'll say for the end. But we still have a lot of movies to get to here. Let me see. What does that take us down to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In total, 11 movies to look at. So I've already wasted too much of your time here. So let's just go ahead and just jump right on into it. We'll start off with the first movie I have on this list here, An American Tail: The Treasure of Manhattan Island.
Video. An underground tunnel system built centuries ago.
Come on! What are you, a bird?
Who, me? Yes.
The adventure too big for one movie continues.
This is a treasure map.
Treasure?
Treasure.
I'm getting a real sinking feeling. When Fievel, Tiger, and all their friends return.
What's that? Bravo!
In an all-new full-length animated feature.
You have a cat with you.
I'm thinking of converting. Explore the mystery.
You've shown us all your world. We could show you ours.
Join in the fun.
We have to find that little princess fast.
And live the tale.
Wrong species.
We can go anywhere in our dreams. Steady there, Romeo. We can imagine.
Universal Studios presents the remarkable story of one little mouse discovering the treasure within himself. An American Tail 3, The Treasure of Manhattan Island. Coming soon from Universal Studios Home Video.
So the interesting thing about this particular movie is that it actually first premiered in the United Kingdom in 1998, but it didn't get a video release here in America until February of 2000. So that's why I'm covering it now instead of doing it back in 1998. But this is the third installment of the American Tail series, and this one you can definitely tell, if you've seen enough animation in your life, especially like Warner Brothers animation in the 90s and all that, you can definitely tell who the animation company this is. That is TMS. That's the company that did a lot of the animation for, Tiny Toons, the Animaniacs, Batman the Animated Series. They did the animation for Akira. It's weird seeing their animation style on this. I will say that right off the get-go. But the story here is that in the historical melting pot of the 19th century New York City, Fievel and the Mousegoods family are struggling to make their American dream come true. But when a mysterious treasure map leads Fievel and his friends to a secret world of Native American mice living beneath the city, he finds something more precious than gold and jewels. So yeah, remember Fievel Goes West? Remember that TV series they had after the movie came out? Well, according to this movie, none of that ever happened. I'm not even kidding. There's literally a scene where they retcon everything that had happened after the first movie, and it's like never happened. It's like that season of Dallas when they had all that crazy stuff happen, and they basically said at the end of the season it was all a dream. I mean, I really don't get why they felt like they needed to pull this Deus Ex Machina and pretend like these two things never existed. It's not like the sequel or the series was heavily hated by people. I mean, you still saw Fievel Goes West on Disney and Cartoon Network a lot back then, and I mean, were kids just expecting to believe that this film never existed? I mean, it's a really weird retcon to do. I mean, it's not like they could have just said, hey, this takes place before the Mousegoods moved to the Old West, and you could have said that, and it probably still would have made some sense, even though the premise on Wikipedia says it does take place before the events of the second movie, although they never really specify it to the actual movie, so what's the point of having this in here to begin with? I don't know. It feels a little weird to kind of pretend the sequel or the series never happened at that point. But as far as the film itself goes, it's perfectly fine. It's a decent direct-to-video sequel. The animation as a whole is a step down compared to the movies, obviously, but for a direct-to-video sequel, it's still impressive. I mean, like I said, it's TMS. It's a company that you go to when you have some quality animation to it. You got some really good voice acting overall here. Thomas Dekker, who you would later see in Terminator: Sarah Connor Chronicles, fits the role of Fievel, and Lacey Chabelle as Tanya pretty well. They bring back the two parents from the previous movie. Pat Music is back as well. Dom DeLuise as Tiger. They do bring in some recognizable voice talents like Tony Jay, Ron Perlman, Renee Abujan's, David Carradine, Sherman Howard, John Casier. So recognizable voice casts. There are some nice little songs here. There's one, Anywhere in Your Dreams. It's a very soothing and comfortable song. And while it's certainly no Somewhere Out There, it's perfectly fine for what it is. And that's probably the best way to describe this movie as a whole. It's nothing groundbreaking or anything in the spirit of the original film, but for what it is, it's a fun little adventure film that fits with the enjoyment of the last movie. It's an enjoyable and fun little direct-to-video sequel that delivers on what it sells you. A fun watch, but not one that's going to warrant a ton of repeat viewing. And we're not done with the Moskowitz family in this year. We'll get to them later on, but let's go ahead and move on to the next direct-to-video film I have here, and that is an extremely goofy movie.
He's a son going off to college.
Going already? See ya!
Goodbye, my little college man.
And going for the extreme adventure.
Let's do it!
Until
Maxie! I'm just a yearning for some learning.
next February and only on video. One goofy dad is about to learn how to groove. Disney presents a movie that proves no matter how old you are, you never stop learning that family comes first, even if your dad is goofy.
Dad, you're scaring people.
An extremely goofy movie, shredding onto video. Leap Day 2000.
So this is a sequel to, of course, a Goofy movie, which came out in 1995. And you basically have the story here where Max is going off to college, and his father, Goofy, he needs to get a job, and unfortunately, a lot of jobs require a college degree. So basically, you can see where the setup is going here. He has to go to Max's college and essentially get a degree because of his failure to complete college. And you know, the original Goofy movie was a fun movie for what it was. It's fun for the fans of the Goof Troop TV series, and so for the sequel, it actually makes sense for it to go direct to video. And seeing as how it's a sequel to a surprisingly successful movie that was released kind of under the radar, but in the years since its release, it's had that following growing and growing. So how does it hold up? Not very well, but at the same time, there are things about it that I do kind of enjoy about it. I think for a direct-to-video production, it's animated pretty well. It's about half as good as the Goofy movie was, but then again, that movie had a bigger budget and was intended more for a theatrical audience. And I mean, this one's more aimed at the direct-to-video audience. And the story is about as generic and as predictable as you can get it. You can do these kind of cliches and tropes. You do get them in there that kind of expect you to have a story like this, but there are some legitimately heartfelt moments. There even is a little homage to something that they had in Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas that's thrown in there, saying that basically these two worlds are connected, even though it clearly does not look like the same thing. The house doesn't look. Some things about this movie don't look the same as the Once Upon a Christmas universe setup with Goofy and Max. But great voice casting overall. Jason Marsden does a pretty good job again as Max, as Bill Farmer as Goofy. Jim Cummings shows up as Pete early in the movie. Rob Paulson, Pauly Shore. They had some new additions to the cast. You got Jeff Bennett playing the preppy bad guy to Max. Brad Garrett is kind of his lackey. Vicki Lewis has this decent role as PJ's love interest, which has basically taken on a life of its own. And you got Bebe Neuwirth, who usually will turn up in something very fun and usually give a great performance. She's very good as Goofy's love interest in this. And unlike a Goofy movie, which was basically a sequel, this movie is played straight with no musical scenes in it, even though there is a lot of classic 70s and 80s songs on it, along with some new revivals, which, you know, that's kind of my bread and butter. And really, one of my favorite songs on this is on the soundtrack for this is the one for Right Back Where We Started From, done by Cleopatra. It's a really good version of the song, almost as good, if not slightly better than the original song, and that original song is a classic song, but this is definitely the most underrated movie song I think I've ever heard, because it's one that nobody really ever talks about, but man, is it good. Like, an extremely Goofy movie may not be on that same level as the original Goofy movie, but it's still a decent movie. It's got some good animation, some good voice work, some good jokes, good music overall. I mean, if you like the original Goofy movie or the Goof Troop cartoon, you'll definitely really enjoy it. But if you're not, I wouldn't say rush out to see it, but maybe you might. Who knows? But, yeah. Let's go back to the Moskowitz. They had another movie come out in 2000 for the American Tales series, and that is The Mystery of the Night Monster.
Fievel's back. And he's made some new friends, including newspaper reporter Nellie Bree.
That's my byline. You're fearless. No, Bible. Only fools are fearless.
They're on the case of the Manhattan Night Monster.
Let's you and I go shed a little light on this monster.
Now, Fievel must set out to find his courage.
I've never been so scared my whole life.
And face his fears. Run him down! As he leads the way through his most exciting adventure yet. Filled with songs.
Everyone's afraid at times, but if you use your wits, you'll find what once was scary is really very ordinary.
Really?
Really?
Featuring Fievel, Tanya,
Things could not get any worse.
Tiger,
Did you say dog?
Tony,
Yo, Fully!
and lots of new characters.
Once a creature de la nuit, c'est de Paris, and nowhere in the world is there a dog more smart than me.
An incredible story the entire family will enjoy. An American Tale, The Mystery of the Night Monster.
So this is the fourth and final installment of the American Tales series, and it only came out about 4 months after the previous one, Treasure of the Manhattan Island, came out in America in July, and I think it was kind of under the radar, too. I don't remember a lot of people really talking about it when it came out. It just kind of came, but then again, there was another movie that came out the same day from Universal, and we'll get to that one after this one, but the story here is that you have a ferocious, mouse-nabbing creature that puts fear into the hearts of New York City's rodents. Fievel and his friends team up with a reporter to chase after the scoop of the century and just maybe get a glimpse of the bad guy himself. Needless to say, this one is probably the weakest of the 4 American Tale movies, even less than the Treasure on Manhattan Island was, which did have some solid animations, some decent songs to it, but here you can definitely tell it's definitely watered down. You can tell that there's a difference in animation quality. It's definitely another overseas studios with lesser quality than the previous film had. This time the songs are very generic and bland in this one compared to the last film. They don't have any real memorability to them, honestly, or lyrically. You almost immediately forget them as soon as they come on. I guess maybe the only thing I can give the movie credit for is that it does have a stellar voice cast to it. With a mix of the returning cast members as well as the new cast here. They're doing a pretty good job with it, but I just wish they had a better script to work with here. And for something that is the last entry in the American Tales series, you'd have to wish for a better finale to the series than what this might give you. I mean, Mystery of the Night Monster really is not a bad movie, but it's not a great movie either. And I think by this point, people got really sick and tired of this pretty quickly. I mean, think about where the Land Before Time movies were when they started doing them every year. They made more of these they made multiple movies of those, and people didn't get tired of those for a long period of time. People were already sick and tired of this by the time the 4th movie came around. So that should tell you something. I think Land Before Time was either at its 7th or 8th movie at this point. It might have been 7th, but I mean, for little kids, it's fine, but everything else, I'd say just stick with the original 2 movies instead of the direct-to-video sequels. If you're desperate, Treasure of Manhattan Island probably would be the best of the 2, but, yeah, just stick with the original 2 films. So what was that other Universal direct-to-video sequel that came out on the very same day? Well, it was Beethoven.
America's favorite dog is back. He's loyal, he's lovable, and he's got a nose for trouble. Now, with his newfound family, he's about to embark on his hairiest adventure yet.
An untrained, drooling
can't consciously ruin anything. I don't think.
Dogs!
It's the biggest family comedy of the year. Judge Reinhold
We are not staying in a hotel.
and Julia Sweeney. Beethoven's Third, coming soon on video.
So Beethoven's Third came out on the same day as An American Tail 4, and it was the first of the direct-to-video sequels, which there was apparently a lot of them too. I think there was after this one, there was the fourth one that was basically a sequel to this one, a fifth one, and then they started having another series where Beethoven basically became a star in Hollywood, and then there was that one where Beethoven basically had the voice of Tom Arnold in a Christmas movie, and then there was one more that came after that, and I don't know which direction they went at, but again, it's been a while since I've seen most of these, but you have the story here about the Newton family from the first two Beethoven movies. They're on vacation in Europe, but do plan to join a Newton family reunion to make sure one of their family members definitely makes it. They ship Beethoven to travel to the reunion with George Newton's brother Richard, played by Judge Reinhold. Guess which family? I just told you what it is. The giant dog follows Richard Newton and his family of a nagging wife, played by Julia Sweeney, and two bratty kids as they hit the road to California in a huge, shiny, and expensive RV equipped with a DVD player. This was back when having a DVD player was like the fancy technology, but then again, that's kind of what it's basically not that now. It's just kind of like we all have a DVD player in some way, shape, or form. But following the family, there are two bumbling crooks who have hidden some secret codes on a DVD that they figure no one in the world would buy, but someone does. And guess who it is? It's Judge Reinhold's character. So now they have a DVD holding top secret information, and the crooks must get it back. I mean, just by that alone, you can tell this took a major step down in quality from here compared to the first two movies. But to this film's credit, it's not the worst, but it's not anywhere near as good as the original films are. I mean, the jokes are very predictable. The setup is very predictable. The cliches of most road trip movies are in this one. The bumbling crooks are like Home Alone. I mean, this came out in 2000. We were past the Home Alone phase at this point, and yet this movie decided to throw them in there. And it gets way too complicated than it needs to be. Like, a DVD, like, you're going to put a secret codes on a Don Knotts DVD? Really? Like... It just gets more. It's just a complicated setup of situations here, and it's just like it doesn't make a whole. The movie doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and I guess that was what they were aiming for. But there's just nothing here in Beethoven's Third that make this a must-watch by any stretch of the imagination. It's just very predictable, very forgettable. I mean, if you just love Beethoven, maybe you might want to check it. Maybe you could check it out, but you're not gonna get a whole lot out of it. I mean, I loved Beethoven growing up. Even I was just kind of like, yeah, this isn't doing it for me, but apparently it was a success because they made several sequels after this one. So what do I know? But that's Beethoven's Third. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next, direct-to-video movie we have here, and that is Buzz Lightyear: A Star Command: The Adventure Begins, starring Tim Allen.
It's here! It's the new action-packed Buzz Lightyear movie! Put it in! Put it in!
Darn thing's jammed.
Let me take a look at that.
Every hero has a beginning. Every hero has an arch enemy.
Lightyear must not escape.
Every hero has someone to rescue. Every hero lives for the thrill of adventure.
I'll bet that one scratched the paint.
But this is no ordinary hero.
Okay, it's so obvious.
It's Buzz Lightyear.
My galaxy!
I can't stand the suspense!
Disney and Pixar present Buzz Lightyear of Star Command: The Adventure Begins, starring Tim Allen.
I must overcome the evil Emperor Zurg, the sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance.
It's the story of the real Buzz Lightyear
You don't look so fat when they draw you that way.
and the Space Rangers of Star Command.
Life or death struggle in the cold fastness of outer space.
Premiering only on video and Disney DVD August 8th.
To infinity and beyond.
Now, this is the thing I would believe that made Andy a fan of Buzz Lightyear. Not whatever Lightyear was trying to do. But, as you can tell, this is the feature-length pilot episode for the Buzz Lightyear Star Command animated series that came on TV in 2000 in the 2001 season, and you have Tim Allen playing Buzz Lightyear in the movie, although he would later be changed to Patrick Warburton in the TV series. In fact, when they actually cut this down to the 3 episodes, it was actually Patrick Warburton doing the voices for Buzz Lightyear in the TV series and not the movie. The movie basically is basically how the series gets started. You know, Buzz basically is being forced to work with they're trying to force a partner on him, and he doesn't like doing that, especially after what happened to his last partner, who we find out later works for the evil Emperor Zurg, once again played by Wayne Knight. And the adventures of the movie just basically show off the adventures of him, the Little Green Men, and all these different characters he comes across. And this is, like I said, it's what I think of when I think of a Buzz Lightyear movie that would make a person like Andy become a fan of his. I mean, this is just it features an incredible top-notch cast that includes Tim Allen, Patrick Warburton, Wayne Knight, Larry Miller, Nicole Sullivan, Adam Carolla, Stephen Furst, Diedrich Bader, Neil Flynn. And it features that same sense of, we're doing a straight-up send-up of Saturday morning cartoons and we're not going to take this all seriously mentality. It manages to create that same over-the-top hilarious energy, which also does a great job of establishing its own universe and storylines, as well as a pretty awesome and hilarious group of villains to come in the TV series. I mean, this could have easily been a cheap cash grab, but the people behind the scenes actually put the time into it. They created this grand scale and universe with these characters. They created a great show and movie that sadly is not on Disney Plus, which makes no sense whatsoever. But one day, we hope that one day that'll change pretty soon, I hope, even though John Lasseter's not there anymore. And he supposedly was not a fan of this series whatsoever, but it's got to be put back on there at some point. In fact, Disney Plus has several shows that aren't on there, like House of Mouse is still not on there. A couple of other things on there. Runaway Brain's not on there for some reason. Terrific Mickey Mouse short. But yeah, Buzz Lightyear Star Command, The Adventure Begins. Definitely look for this one. Even if you can't find it on Disney Plus, I'm sure you can find the show somewhere out there. It's definitely worth it in the end. So, with that said, let's go back to Universal and see another animated film they put out. Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet the Wolfman.
There, this Halloween. Those 3 mischief makers are back in an all-new full-length feature.
How do you do? What's up with you? Little brother, how come you're howling at the moon?
Something's up with Theodore.
Is that Theodore?
Alvin and the Chipmunks meet the Wolfman. Bring it home today.
Yeah, you can kind of see what makes this so interesting. You realize the major problem with this setup. You're taking the story of the Wolfman and applying it into a kid's movie. You know, that this story can only end one way, and that's going to end up with one less chipmunk being there once the movie ends, if you really want to take this movie out of context like I'm doing right now. But let's talk about this movie. Basically Alvin is struggling with nightmares of werewolves. He believes that his next-door neighbor, Mr. Talbot, get it? Lawrence Talbot, voiced by Maurice LaMarche, is a werewolf. And of course, no one believes him. Meanwhile, the boys are working on a school production of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Alvin basically blows up the school auditorium. He's expelled from the production. Theodore is basically put in to be the lead and rise to his lack of confidence. And basically, Theodore gets bitten by the werewolf, Mr. Talbot, and essentially turns into a werewolf, but not in the way you might think. And it's going to get pretty interesting as we move along here. But I will say this, as an overall sequel to the other movie, the Frankenstein one, it's a radical upgrade. Like, this looks much closer to the 80s TV series style. Like, this has much better songs, has a better put together plot line. Actual life lessons are kind of learned in this, so it seems like you kind of have a winner here. But really delve into this. The plot is more understandable and easy to understand compared to the previous movie. There are still a lot of noticeable flaws to the story that goes right back to the title of the film. For starters, like I said, the name of the next-door neighbor of Alvin's is Lawrence Talbot, the same man in the original Wolfman who turned into the werewolf. And considering how Alvin loves horror and science fiction, you would have thought he would have put these two things together, and of course he doesn't, because nobody believes him, even though they've established in the last movie that Frankenstein exists in this world. yeah, there are some nitpicks too with the plot that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. For example, this is the only one of the two movies that features the Chipettes, and here for some strange reason they have Britney sounding like a Valley girl, or more like or more than likely, since this was 5 years after Clueless, she kind of sounds like Cher from that movie. It's a really odd decision on the part of Janice Carmen, the co-creator of the Chipmunks, to go in that direction, but I don't know. It just felt kind of odd and out of place in my opinion, but and then there's that one part that a lot of people seem to overlook but I just remember this one part that just comes out as odd if you listen closely. So there's a part where Alvin is forced out of the production of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the director's talking to the principal about who should take over the part and suggests Theodore to be the replacement. If you listen really closely, you can hear the principal whispering in the director's ear. I literally can hear the phrase, "Bless the Lord with all your," and I'm not even joking. The whisper literally starts off like the sound of a prayer. I don't know if that was intentional or just a random out of nowhere line, but you ever watch the movie again, listen to that scene very closely, because you can definitely, because once I tell you about it, you can kind of pretty much hear it right from the get-go. But to me, the biggest problem with the movie that comes into play here is that it happens in the last 20 minutes, where you have all the crazy stuff happening, because Dave literally comes face-to-face with Talbot as the werewolf, proving that, hey, Alvin wasn't completely insane in thinking this monster actually exists, and tries to get to the kids before Talbot does. Meanwhile, Theodore basically spends most of the movie as a werewolf puppy, but then he finally turns into a full-fledged werewolf, and by full-fledged werewolf, I mean Jack Black if he never shaved his facial and starts causing havoc backstage. I mean, that's literally what I thought of when I saw this again. I thought to myself, that's not a werewolf, that's Jack Black. I mean, like, again, watch the movie and you'll see what I'm talking about. So Talbot finally makes it to school, because Dave doesn't realize until the last minute he's leading Talbot right to them. So, oops on his part, and he eventually comes face to face with Alvin himself. So Theodore has Eleanor cornered in this corner, but the amulet that he gave her earlier in the film kind of snaps him out of it. And he runs off only to return once Talbot gets ready to attack Alvin and the gang on stage, and thus the two have a one-on-one standoff. And the biggest WTF plot twist of this movie is that they fight, but then when Theodore bites Talbot, it somehow gets rid of the curse, and thus both Talbot and Theodore are cured of the werewolf's curse. That's how they avoid the obvious real ending of having the wolf being shot by a silver bullet. I mean, again, would have been a really dark ending to the movie and the whole franchise, but it's never explained what happened. Simon basically says that because Theodore bit Talbot back, it reversed the curse, and thus things went back to normal, which I guess is not a bad explanation, but an idea I had would have been to essentially have the same situation, except have it so that Theodore bites Talbot in the exact same spot that Talbot bit Theodore at. Thus, the whole reversing the curse scenario would make more sense to it. I mean, that's just the way I see it. It's odd, but hey, at least it's better than taking the darker way out and shooting Theodore in the heart with a silver bullet. Or if you really want to go crazy for it, what Wednesday and Pugsley do in the Addams Family movie when they're on stage and like all the audience is literally thinking this is all part of an act, and some blood sprays all over the place with the werewolf chews up all the kids. Like, again, it'd be like in that scene from the Addams Family. But the biggest case of Holy Mother of contrived happy endings comes at the very end, when you had the big after party. The principal, who earlier in the film announces that she's retiring, and guess who the new principal is? It's Lawrence Talbot. So it's a good thing they got rid of the curse before his job started, because that would have been really awkward. And Dave doesn't realize that the situation is taken care of, and they literally tell him that Theodore took down a werewolf, and Dave wants to know how the hell he did that, and I was just like, yeah, he doesn't need to know that. I think he kind of does. I mean, he literally saw Talbot turn into a werewolf. He knows that Alvin isn't insane, and he deserves some form of an explanation or apology for what the hell has happened over the last few days, but the movie just completely forgets about it. 360's over to a song, and they all live happily ever after. And I mean, again, intended solely for kids. I understand, but there's a lot of plot holes there that really need to be addressed. But so overall, how does the movie fare up in general? It is definitely a vast improvement over the Frankenstein movie. Better animation, more colorful, more vibrant, more like the 80s cartoon. The songs are nicely done. The voice acting is pretty good. The plotline better handled for the most part, and there is a good life lesson about standing up for yourself and not just being a push-up. But with that said, the last 20 minutes of the movie just go so crazy and so ridiculous. It kind of takes the overall enjoyment of the film away a little bit, but it's a harmless movie. It's a heavily flawed film, but a very harmless movie. I'd say for like if it ever comes on TV once a year, definitely check it out. If you grew up with the original 80s Alvin and the Chipmunks show, or even with the Chipmunks before then, I think you definitely would get a kick out of this. But just be prepared for a lot of plot holes to come. So with that said, on to the next movie we have here, and that is Tweety's High-Flying Adventure.
Video. His mission. Collect 80 paw prints. His deadline.
Gotcha!
80 days. The only one big enough for the job
It is you, oh great one.
is a bird.
Thank you.
Introducing Tweety in his all-new feature-length movie. He's on a mission that seems impossible.
My Tweety can travel around the world in 80 days, collecting the paw prints of 80 cats.
He has to travel the globe to show everyone he's no featherweight. He'll use anything he's got
Bombs away.
to get everywhere he needs to go.
Go, Tweety!
For the first time, the tiny one has hit the big time.
What's the big attraction?
Tweety!
Tweety's High-Flying Adventure.
Mr. Popular.
Now available only on video cassette.
Speaking of movies with a lot of ridiculous plot points, here's another one. So basically, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it kind of feels like it is, because a lot of the same people who work on the show are on this. I mean, this feels like a finale to the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, which was the show in the 90s, which featured Sylvester and Tweety and Granny solving mysteries. And the basic storyline of this one is that you have, on the 2nd of October, Colonel Rimfire at the Looney Club in London announces about his beliefs that cats are the most intelligent, most musical animals, after his many plans were foiled by Cool Cat. So Granny, hoping to raise money for a nearby children's park, makes a wager that her Tweety can fly around the world in 80 days, collecting the paw prints of 80 cats. So the whole thing starts off because one character believes that cats are the most intelligent animal out there, and so Granny basically decides, you know what? Have my Tweety fly around the world in 80 days and collect 80 cat prints. I mean, that makes sense, I guess. But, by the way, you know what would really make Tweety seem smarter than cats? If he just took the password he was given to get the paw prints and smacked Sylvester unconscious and just used his paw for the 80 paw prints. I mean, do cats have that many different paw prints features to them? I mean, I guess maybe the nails could be an extra feature, but he could work his way around that. But, again, we wouldn't have a movie because of that. So Sylvester, still hoping to make Tweety his personal snack, is incensed at the thought of the other cats getting to him first, and vows to follow Tweety around the world and catch the canary himself. Because for some reason in this movie, Tweety has basically become the only bird in the world, because every cat in the world decides to go after Tweety, even if it means stopping a children's park from getting demolished. Apparently the cats have been possessed by the spirit of somebody like Donald Trump. I mean, that's basically what it is. Oh, and there's a thief that's also around stealing passports, and he stole the wrong passport. They set him up early in the movie. He never shows up again until the end of the movie, and trust me, it's just stupid what they do to this guy at the end of the film, but we'll get along to this as we move along here. And it has some good music overall on this one. You got Randy Rogel, who did a lot of the music for Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, and Pinky and the Brain. They're not really, actually, the more I think about it, they're not really that great, but especially considering that you have a guy like him on there. But it feels like he's not even trying anymore. Like, he's not even really going in as much as I think he should with these, even though he's written a lot of great songs for Animaniacs, you know, Tiny Toons and Pinky and the Brain, these classic shows that we grew up with in the 90s. But, so basically, Tweety goes off to Paris. He's blown into a strange wind by the Swiss Alps. He eventually gets trapped, so Daffy and Bugs both have to save him. Yeah. You know, Daffy and Bugs are on the cover of this movie on video and DVD. We never see him again at this point. You have two of the... It's like, they're on the cover of the video and DVD, and, like, who needs Bugs and Daffy when we get Lola Bunny? Not the Lola Bunny that was actually funny on the Looney Tunes show, no. This is still the Space Jam, not Looney in any way, don't call me doll, Lola Bunny. So, there's that. I mean, basically the entire movie is Tweety goes somewhere, there's a whole bunch of cats gobbling up, he has to escape, hilarity ensues, again, rather rinse repeat. It's nice to know that the bird rapture just happened, and apparently Tweety is the only bird left in the world to be eaten, at least for now, as we basically have another bird that gets introduced into this movie as he goes to Egypt, and the movie just keeps... the winds keep taking these two to many different places. Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and Japan. And eventually making it onto a boat to the United States. Which, if you look at a map, you could tell, you know why the winds are a major plot point in this, because it's like they're trying to make you forget that they are just going all over the map, no consistency or continuity whatsoever, but whatever, it's Looney Tunes logic. It's the same logic that basically says a male baby duck can be given growth pills, get turned into a female duck. I mean, it's stupid, but you acknowledge its stupidity and just go along with it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch Nasty Quacks, because that's literally the ending of this cartoon. Great cartoon, but at the same time, it's just like, how does it happen? I don't know. Screw it. But, so yeah, you get some more pointless cameos from the other Looney Tunes, like Taz and all that. And then it just gets kind of ridiculous at some point, because, like, there's a part in the movie where, you know, there's a part in the movie where they try to tug at your heartstrings, because, you know, Tweety ends up singing this song about it, which is not a bad song per se, but, there's one problem with the placement of the song here. It's like, nothing really happens in the movie for this song to be sung. It's like they go into a hurricane because Tweety says they can save a day by going through the storm, and Auga, who's the other bird that he comes across, ends up getting sucked up in the winds, and they make you think it's because Tweety was being selfish for trying to get there a day early, and that doesn't really happen at all. They get separated because of Mother Nature, and not because of what Tweety was trying to do. The whole thing becomes pointless, and there's nothing there but to filler to pad out the runtime. And then we get to the ending, which really is stupid even for Looney Tunes standards. But so they basically get to this pub, and the thief from before, who had nothing to do in the time that we saw him in the beginning of the film to now, basically comes, tries to take the royal passport, is foiled almost immediately. And then the stupid thing about the thief is that he eats the passports that he steals. Why does he do this? Never explained. No reason whatsoever. He just eats passports. I mean, I guess you're just supposed to accept it because it's Looney Tunes logic, but even for Looney Tunes logic, this is really, really stupid. It's not even funny. It's just kind of like, why is he doing this? Like, we'll never know. And, yeah, Sylvester attempts to frame Tweety by passing his license to fly for the stolen royal passport, which wasn't the point of him trying to eat Tweety all along, so what good does putting Tweety in prison do for Sylvester? And he basically almost succeeds, but it turns out the real passport's in his hands, and thus the cops are absolutely pointless in doing that. And so Tweety and I would believe they're a day late, but because it's the 21st of December, they cross the international date line. They're able to get back to London, only to find out that they managed to get 79 paw prints. And Tweety never realizes he forgets Sylvester, so he flies into the prison truck that he's in to get his paw print, basically saving the park. So it gets really stupid. This is a really, really dumb movie. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's elements I do not like about this. I like the voice work. You know, it's June Foray and Joe Lasky once again working off each other. It's got a couple of decent funny moments, but then you have to sit through some dumb plot points and character traits, pointless filler material, lackluster music, sloppy animation. This is some really sloppy animation. This movie feels like they were trying to do what the Chipmunk Adventure did back in the 80s, but the Chipmunk Adventure had a bigger animation budget, and it showed. It had good music. It had a good story. It was much more consistent. But this just feels like a mess. It completely makes the Looney Tunes style of humor seem like it was not funny at all. I mean, you'd be better off just watching the Sylvester and Tweety mysteries and get a better product out of it. But this was one of those big letdowns I remember as a kid, So, yeah, that's Tweety's high-flying adventure. So, on to the next movie we have here, Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea.
10 years ago, a mermaid dreamed of life on the land.
I've never seen a human this close before.
Now, her daughter dreams of the sea.
You know what? Sometimes I even pretend I have friends.
The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. Get ready for a story unlike any other.
This is the only way. Melody can't know about merpeople or Atlantica.
It's an adventure you'll never forget.
What's happening? Melody!
Walt Disney Pictures proudly presents an all-new, full-length animated feature.
I know this necklace means something. If no one's gonna tell me, I'm gonna find out for myself.
The Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. Premiering only on video and Disney DVD.
I'm too old for this.
This is, of course, the sequel to the original Little Mermaid film. This takes place over a decade after the original film and focuses on Ariel and Eric's daughter, Melody, played by Tara Strong, who's a human princess who longs to swim in the ocean despite her parents' laws that the sea is forbidden to her. It's a kind of an interesting idea. You're basically kind of doing a role reversal of the original film. Like, in the original film, it's Ariel's daughter where Ariel's daughter dreams of life in the sea, where Ariel's dream in the original movie was to live on land. And there's potential to make this an interesting conflict, but it doesn't work that way. It feels like the only real goal behind this was simply, hey, let's bring back all these beloved characters people fell in love with the first time and do a generic-ass direct-to-video movie. I mean, it literally feels like that type of a film. And, hey, here's some Timon and Pumbaa-like characters because The Lion King was still popular and Timon and Pumbaa are still popular. So, you know, who needs Sebastian, Scuttle, and Flounder? Here's these two characters you will not give two craps about whatsoever. Oh, and by the way, Ursula's not back in this, or at least not Ursula herself. She died in the first movie, but it's not like nobody has ever brought back villains before who were previously believed dead. But, like, if you're going to go back to the trouble of bringing Pat Carroll back as the new villain of this, why not just have the return of the old character? But then again, the next Little Mermaid movie they did kind of also ruins the continuity of that villain more, but we'll save that for when we get to Ariel's beginning. But as far as the movie goes, it just doesn't come together well. It's nice they got some of the original voice actors back. There is some good casting in Tara Strong as her daughter. But then again, these characters are not really given a whole lot of motivations to relate to, like to everything that they dealt with in the last movie. I mean, Eric barely does anything in this movie. I mean, Rob Paulsen's kind of wasted in that role, basically playing the role that Chris Daniel Barnes played in the last film. To me, the biggest problem with the movie overall is the animation. It just feels so watered down, and the effort doesn't seem like it's there. I mean, you go back and look at the Little Mermaid, the original Little Mermaid, you can see the passion and creativity with the animation. A role so important to Glenn Keane, who basically begged the studio to let him do the animation for Ariel after listening to Part of Your World, and saying that he could feel in his heart to do so. I mean, anybody with that much passion to draw that character knows he's going to give it his all when you see the final product, and lo and behold, that's why Glenn Keane's one of the best, not just one of Disney's best animators, but one of the best animators, period. This movie, the passion is not there. It seems watered down. It feels like a Disney afternoon show blown up for a feature-length film. It really doesn't work. It's a lackluster sequel to one of the definitive movies of a generation. It took a lot of the charm and the wit that was in the last film. It should have been something more interesting, but it's a badly put-together cash grab. When you think of bad Disney direct-to-video sequels, this is the one you definitely think of. Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea. So, back to more Warner Brothers direct-to-video sequels. Here's Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders.
We are not alone. There is life lurking out there.
I told you they're real.
If they invade, who will save us? It's landing now. The all-new movie Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders. Only on video cassette and DVD.
What are you talking about?
Featuring out-of-this-world action and close encounters of the funniest kind. Cooperate and will not be harmed. Are they real? What does the government know? Will Scooby-Doo and Shaggy finally get enough to eat? Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders. Now, only on video cassette and DVD. From Warner Brothers Family Entertainment.
So this is the third of the Scooby-Doo direct-to-video movies after Zombie Island and The Witch's Ghost. In this story, you have a cosmic case of UFOs, intergalactic intrigue, and out-of-this-world romance launching the mystery gang into the most unearthly adventure ever. Stranded in Roswell, New Mexico, the gang soon discovers the place crawling with UFO buffs, secretive scientists, and less-than-friendly alien invaders. They then, after being chased by aliens being about an UFO, Shaggy and Scooby fall for this woman and another dog that come around, Crystal and Amber, and they investigate the mysterious sightings, which lead them to a government research base and a huge network of caves hidden under the town. And let me just say right now, we're taking a step down with the tone of these movies, It started with a darker and more intense tone with Zombie Island, with the monsters being real, back to a slightly more formulaic but still heavy enough tone in Witch's Ghost. This one's basically going back to the typical standard Scooby-Doo formula where the real villains are humans in disguise. Now, does it make the movie bad? No, but it does make it more formulaic and kind of more cliched riddled than the previous movies were. I mean, it felt like the studios got more complaints from the people about the darker tone in the other two movies, but that was kind of the point of what they were trying to do. It felt like they were trying to force a lighter tone movie, and as far as the movie itself goes, it's fine. I still think the animation in these first couple of movies are still pretty good and more crisper and more high quality than what you would expect with these characters and what would eventually come down the road. But the overall twists and turns and intrigue are kind of predictable. The story is not really all that memorable, nor are the bad guys' motivations and purpose for this plan, which we know why they're doing it to begin with. I mean, it's definitely the lesser of the three Scooby-Doo movies that I've looked at so far, but there are still some redeemable qualities to it that make it a watch that you should see. It's more of a typical Scooby-Doo-esque adventure, and it's fine for what it is, but it definitely is a step down compared to the other movies. One last direct-to-video film to look at here, and that is Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker.
2000. Beware of his presence. The arch-enemy is back. He will threaten the city. He's a maniac. With awful power. And no one can help. No one except Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. The first feature-length Batman Beyond movie coming exclusively to video fall 2000. And this time, he's not alone.
So this is, of course, based off the Batman Beyond TV series, which I remember when I saw this for the first time, I didn't really get into Batman Beyond from the get-go. It took me a long time to really get into it, and even then, I'm just kind of like, it's fine for what it is. I mean, it's fine, but it's not Batman the Animated Series. Basically, the story of this movie is that you have Terry trying to figure out the Joker's secrets and discovers the greatest mystery in the career of the original Batman, the true story of the night Batman fought the Joker for the last time. Though when Bruce Wayne is almost killed in one of the Joker's newest attacks, as he comes back in some weird shape form that we find out later on, it's up to Batman Beyond to avenge his mentor and put the Joker to rest forever. And a lot of it plays. There's a lot of creep factors into this. A lot of it because of the futuristic Joker, which is more menacing and threatening feel to him than compared to what he was before, like in the new Batman Adventures, when he had this completely new look that didn't work with anything. I feel like they kind of melded the two together into one thing to make it kind of give him a more creepy and intensifying look. And again, Mark Hamill's voice still coming out of that same Joker we've come to know and love. I mean, this is easily one of the darkest animated movies I've seen, because it's a movie that really it doesn't help that you had a movie that this was released right around the time of the Columbine shootings, and the movie was actually edited down considerably. They actually changed the way the Joker's killed in this, and a lot of these changes were very controversial. And in fact, they actually did release an uncut version of this a couple of years after this movie came out. The Joker death scene in this is one of the most messed up, intense moments in any movie, because you just see how crazy the Joker brainwashes Tim Drake in this and just tortures him to eventually turn him against Batman. It's one of the most darkest and most intense things you'll ever see in an animated movie, and something you'll probably never notice about this is that Tim Drake, after the Joker gets him, is actually voiced by the casting director of this, Andrea Romano, who's worked on a ton of different Warner Brothers animation. It comes together in a nice, action-packed and occasionally very funny end, where Terry has to basically taunt the Joker into this great line about how Terry thought the Joker always wanted to make Batman laugh, and the Joker screams out, "You're not Batman!" It's just a great bit of dialogue, and the film comes to a very satisfying payoff at the end. The way the Joker comes back into the picture is explained actually pretty well here, especially how the Joker actually manages to come back even though he was killed. This is easily one of the darkest DC animated movies you'll ever see. It's one of the best ones they've ever produced, and it gives the movie its big edge. It lets the filmmakers test the grounds outside of their normal environment, and once again, they succeed in creating one of the stronger DC animated movies, and coming right at the peak when the Bruce Timm and his team were basically moving on to other things within the universe of DC. There's still a lot to admire about this movie. Great animation, great action, great story, dark moments that work incredibly well. It's definitely one of the stronger DC animated movies. Even if you're not into Batman Beyond, this will make you want to get into it. And it was because of this that I did eventually get into watching Batman Beyond. And I will say, like I said, it's good. It's not Batman the Animated Series great, but it's good enough on its own to say that I do recommend it. Especially, I do recommend this movie. So, let's wrap this long episode up. I know I've been going off for a long period of time now, but I have one more movie here that I wanted to talk about. Not a direct-to-video movie, but the last notable film of 2000 I did not get to cover beforehand, Shadow of the Vampire.
Viewer now had an obsession to create the world's most realistic vampire movie. He dug up an actor.
I'd like some makeup.
Well, you don't get him. Who didn't just play the part,
But you're not feeding.
no, you're not drinking her blood. He lived it. John Malkovich
How dare you destroy my photographer?
Why not the script girl?
and Willem Dafoe had an eat her later. Shadow of the Vampire.
And that's the reason why this movie is memorable. Willem Dafoe as this vampire monster, Max Schreck. And the basic story is that it's a fictionalized account of the making of the classic vampire film Nosferatu, directed by F.W. Murnau, who's played here by John Malkovich, during which the film crew began to have disturbing suspicions about the leading actor. And it's just such an amazing movie, man. I mean, this is a very underrated vampire movie, mostly because of what Willem Dafoe brings to the table as Schreck. You can tell why he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for this. I mean, this is a great performance. Just he's sold on this movie altogether, and it's very. And when you look at him, and you also look at Max Schreck in real life, you could tell the differences between the two. You can tell the similarities between the two of them, and I love the way they're able to do. I love the way they're able to go as close as you can to the original source material, but make it its own thing. It's such a very unique film. It's this director, he actually would later go on to direct a very lackluster psychological thriller called Suspect Zero. But before this, he actually did a experimental horror movie, which was called Begotten, which was basically no dialogue whatsoever. And I think the story about it was that it has a lot of the visual style that's in this movie, evoking a lot of early silent films. And I've never seen that one, but you could definitely tell that was supposed to, that he took that into consideration with this particular film, and it just shows how well it's done here. Like, phenomenal movie, very underrated film. I don't think a lot of people ever talk about this one, but it's definitely worth it. Go seek this one out if you can find it. Shadow of the Vampire, fantastic film. So with that said, we finally finished with the 2000s leftovers. Next time we meet, we'll head into 2001's first crop of movies to look at, including Say the Last Dance. We also have Orlando Jones and Eddie Griffin in Double Take, Kevin Costner in 13 Days, Sean Connery in Finding Forrester, Antitrust, and also the Coen Brothers' Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? So we've got 6 movies to look at next time around. Actually 7, because I see another one here, State and Maine. So 7 movies in particular to look at, so we'll take a look at all those on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.